But the thing with the any type of hedonistic behavior, I think what you were saying is you create this noise around you in order to tune out that inner voice. And you have to tune out outer noise to detect inner noise, and you have to detect inner noise to upscale your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, what you're doing is like your inner noise is it's a signal from your higher self to guide you the right way. If you think about anything you want to become, or anything you already are in a different universe, in the quantum, a quantum version of you is already that accomplished, successful person that is in a loving relationship, that is healthy, and that is living in an emotional state of peace. So if you think of that version as your ideal self, your inner voice is what you need to listen to in order to uncover the next step and nudge your decision-making behavior to move towards that, right? But if you create this noise outwardly, it's almost like, this is what I do for my tinnitus. I sleep with a noise machine that's louder than my tinnitus, so I don't have to hear it when I sleep. So that's the same thing. Like if you go out,
drowning it out. Yeah.
You're drowning it out. You're just creating a noise, an external noise, that essentially masks that thing that you're trying to avoid. But that thing you're trying to avoid is also your pathway to heaven. But it's uncomfortable to face because typically our intuition nudges us into territories of exploration. So you have to face a certain level of uncertainty and seek a certain level of risk to become that version that is your ideal self. You're currently not that because you're staying in a zone that is certain. So your ego is always trying to talk you out of that, because the ego thinks if you move towards uncertainty and take risk and go into the realms of exploration, the hero's journey, you have the chance to be defeated. You have the chance for your genetic material to be excluded from evolution. So your mind is going to find every reason to tell you to not go there. And then the next step is, okay, let me go drink. Let me go anything that's loud enough to distract you from me. The thing is, though, that voice doesn't go away, and it also doesn't stay the same. It actually grows. Because you're a divine creature, that voice grows. Because it's like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And for you to do that, you have to silence, you have to mute outer voice, and you have to set time to listen to your inner noise. And there's different ways to do it. Like there's just being in silence. There's meditation, 10, 15 minutes a day is enough. And all you need to do really is observe your inner noise without any valence, neither good or bad. It's like throwing a stone in a puddle of water where the dirt comes up. Like that noise, it's that dirt. You just have to let it process. If you think about your inner noise, those are all things that you're not processing because you're tuning them out, so they're screaming louder. If you just sat with them and you let them be, you would actually hear what they say. You wouldn't have to judge them, and you would let them process. And when you let them process, then you have a better understanding and a clear path towards hearing your intuition. But otherwise, your intuition is clouded with all that inner noise. And then you're putting external noise on top of that. You have to tune out external noise, then let your inner noise evaporate, and then it's almost like moving the clouds aside for the intuition to come through and send you the signal of what way you should be moving next. And then it's up to you to act upon that intuition.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the pathway forward. And it's very uncomfortable the more inner noise you have.
Yeah.
Tune it out.
Yeah, it's so true. How do you find that space? Just with quiet time, with meditation, obviously we've chatted about this, but like even you were saying a minute ago about finding it in the shower, like you can find it wherever, as long as you're prepared to kind of put yourself in the place or the space to tune into that.
Yeah, I think
so you have to get out of the way of the distractions.
I think it just starts with the willingness too. Right.
Well, that goes directly back to like, how can you be willing to want to change something if you're unaware of it?
If you're unaware of it, you have to practice awareness. And you can practice awareness in different ways. Again, meditation is probably the easiest tool. The second tool that you can use is journaling. You can literally write down your thoughts. At the end of the day, you can like, what was my theme internally today? How did I dress up for this party today? What was it? Was it bright? Was it dark? Was it red? Was it blue? And you write down what you were thinking, how you were judging someone earlier, how you were, worried about something. You write that down. For some people, that's an easier thing to do. I personally don't do it, but I know for a lot of people, that's a practice to become aware. They need to write it down. And then you can look at it. And the moment you look at it, you are not that anymore, right? You're conscious of it. So you're aware of it. And then you become second nature, and at some point you're gonna live in a state where you're both aware and identified with what you're doing, but you can move back and forth. You become this version of flesh self and higher self, and you can interchange between those two based on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to become aware. If you don't become aware, you're like I was telling Alex this the other day, you're like the Spanish bull that's going for the red flag.
Yeah, you're purely reactive at that point.
Purely swung up and down.
It's just like, well, there it is, off I go.
Yeah.
That's not going to help you though.
No, and you can't avoid those swings. That's one of the rules of the Kybalion is
that the same as a pendulum in
it's
in
the
Adam's
same.
thing?
It's exactly
It's
the
like
same.
it's coming that way. You just got to kind of move with it.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
In the Kybalion, it's called the law of rhythm in the Hermetic teachings. So for every swing to one side, there needs to be a swing of the equivalent magnitude to the other side. The thing is, you're not going to be avoiding the law of rhythm because it's a universal law that applies on all three levels: spirit, mind, and body. But what you can do is you can actually dock onto neutrality. You can actually stay in the realm of consciousness and just be aware. The moment you are aware, it's almost like you are above the swing. The swing is still happening. It's not like that you're...
Oh, but you're watching it, observing
watching
it, whatever
it.
you're saying, yeah.
Exactly. You're watching it, you're observing it, so you're not emotionally swung one side or the other. And this is a very interesting law because it also means that if you are able to be in absolute ecstasy when something external is happening to you that makes you so happy, with that law you would also be able to be swung in the exact opposite way. And that's why the Buddhists say the wise man stays the same in pleasure and in pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you can remain somewhat neutral and normalize the things you idolize and not be like, and ooh, and no,
Mm-hmm.
then you are. It doesn't mean that the rhythm isn't happening. It's still happening.
But you're not dependent on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say your mood and your emotional state is not dependent on it.
Correct.
Yeah. You're Mr. Miyagi. You're wax on, wax off.
That's it. That's exactly it, man.
Yeah. That's the most challenging thing for me to honestly keep up, is to be as neutral as possible, because I'm an emotional creature. I react to things. And I like the fact that I react to things. It's part of my the fullness of my experience on this planet in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So to notice those things, it's just to not become them, especially when it's like, for example, anger. It's okay to feel that.
Yeah.
It's just don't apply it or don't identify with it.
It's important to feel that, I think. It's absolutely wrong to reject that. And the reason for that is it serves a certain purpose. Any emotion that you feel,
when it's transmuted, if you can notice the anger and change it to something else, do you mean? Or like utilize it in some way? I'll use that anger to score top bins.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You channel it in some way.
I think before you even channel it, it allows you to have a glimpse into your inner being, because you can ask yourself why it is you feel angry. So to that regard, anger would be a signal for you to find yourself, to know thyself, like they say, right? Why are you angry? And some part of you that you're probably embarrassed of or that you're insecure about just was uncovered by someone saying or doing something to you, right? If you look at emotion that way, it just allows you... It's not rejecting the emotion. It's telling the emotion, welcoming it, because you can find yourself doing that. But the problem is, here's the thing with negative emotion, man. When you're in a state of negative emotion, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's despair, whether it's fear, your operating system, your decision-making, and your actions are set up in a way to neutralize that emotion. So the decision-making is not based on optimal outcomes, because it's not based on creativity and love. It's based upon you wanting to neutralize pain. That's why I see the people that drink and do drugs or like are very heavily involved in hedonistic behavior. That's probably because they feel a dispositional state of pain. And when you're in that disposition state, you're not making good outcomes because every action is there to neutralize pain.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So for you to actually make optimal decisions, when I say optimal, the ones that are in alignment with the version of self that everyone is striving to become, peaceful, loving, feeling of belonging, abundant, whatever that is, you have to first get yourself in a state of neutrality and peace. Because when you're there, now your operating system's goal, the ultimate output is not neutralizing emotional pain. It's creativity, it's love, and it's expansion.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
openness.
it's exactly that.
I watched my pastor talking about energy levels, which I thought was really interesting for a pastor to be talking about. Like he's talking, I'm expecting him to be referencing Bible, Jesus, God, and he's talking about energy levels. And the long and the short of it, at the end of the whole of the 30-minute conversation, this is a leadership podcast. He is saying, very basically, be around and engage in things that elevate your energetic levels and stop doing or avoid things that lower your energetic levels. And that's the most simple advice that you can really hear from anyone. And we all understand what that means, yet it's still the thing that we need to constantly be kind of, I guess, practicing and also being aware of every day, that we should be leaning into those things that elevate our spirit and lean away from the things that don't. But we don't do that. Like we all of us, every single human is engaging in some stuff which is lowering them.
I would like to ask the guy a question.
Yeah.
What do you do if you work in a 9 to 5 where you have to obey to a boss that you hate, at a job that you hate, but you have to pay your bills? What if you come home to a partner that it's currently not working out, but you already have a kid? You have to take care of the kid. You have to take care of the guy coming home, or vice versa as a guy as well. And you still have to engage in the things that are not fulfilling because they're part of that obligation. What do you do then?
Well,
For us, it's easier. We're single. We're unmarried. We're fairly free in our jobs, in our day-to-day, right? But to that regard, we have that liberty to do that. But I know a lot of people, they're like, all right, that sounds great, man. I'm going to engage in the things I love. But guess what? I have to wake up in the morning. Everyone annoys me at work.
Well, there's you know
what I mean?
There's levels within that person would need to work on. If everybody at work annoys them, then that's probably something to do with them as well. Like it's just I think the overall moving towards things that lift our spirits up and being around people and situations that do that to our energetic state. So the things and people that bring us encouragement, joy, support, connection, those things, it's just to know that, of course, that's going to make me a better person, make me want to be more like that.
Yeah.
It's just the same as curating your circle of your friends that you're around, which will dictate how you do in life. Because if you're around deadbeats, you're gonna end up the same way. So you just got it's a curation of of what's around you and the things that you engage in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like those things. What the guy is saying is right, but a lot of times it's not the complete picture, and for that you have to look at the opposite, because you can do all of that. Let's say you make time, you go to the gym, you read your book, maybe you're artistically inclined, you start painting. Let's say your passion is like listen to nice podcasts. The reality is, if you have big factors in your life that are the opposite of that, all of that positive stuff is undone once you go back into those realms that hold you back and that don't feel fulfilling. So the first part is figuring out what those areas are that you're absolutely not passionate about, that you absolutely dislike to do. Why is it that you're having to do them? And it could be, like you say, if you're in a job that you're unhappy with, you can read as many happy books as you want. You go to the job and it's the same thing. So the goal would be, what is it that you actually want to do professionally? If you were able to generate money in another way, what would it be? And then also work towards eliminating the negative factors that are otherwise neutralizing all the positives that you're doing, right? That's why it's sometimes not as simple as just doing those things, because a lot of times you have to not do the things that you currently have to do. And that means changing sometimes big areas of your life. I know, for example, for myself, it was difficult to leave my partner 2021. It was very difficult because I felt like, I was doing these areas. I was physically healthy. I was going to the gym. I was getting my PhD at that time. But it felt like the relationship wasn't working out. So ultimately, it was very difficult for me to be that loving, creative, joyful person if I'm doing those good things, but I always come home to a relationship where I don't feel like I belong. And it was not anything wrong with her. It was just that that relationship was not what my higher self was looking for.
Right.
So for me, the biggest challenge was not just doing the things I'm passionate about. It's finding a way to become courageous enough to leave that relationship.
Absolutely. But you knew that that was what you needed to do.
Yep.
And I think that there's something that we all have that sense. Again, it's intuition or whatever you want to call it, but we know. So we'll know intuitively what serves us and what doesn't. That's what I'm arguing. That's what I feel like he's saying too.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, the biggest things, the hardest things to do, the hardest conversations to have, the biggest decisions to make will heed the biggest changes in your life. But of course, they're going to be the most difficult to have, because that's what we always say again with resistance and the dream, that like they're going to be. It's even to get the grass is green on the other side. You've got to climb over the fence to get to it. It's going to dictate some changes in your life. There is no other way to evolve. If that is evolution. If you want to stay as you are, cool, then you will devolve. There's only one. Let's grow or die. That's it.
Yeah. I think it's nice to do the things you're passionate about, but it's probably even more important.
I want to make sure that you're not following this, because I'm not saying do the things that you're passionate about. I'm saying be in and around the things that elevate your energetic imprint.
Mm-hmm. And all I'm saying is
that can be passionate. That can be passion projects, but it can also be identifying areas that your energy is being pulled down in, and knowing, okay, so that's making me feel less than myself, more depressed, more sad, more whatever.
Yeah. And find a way to get out of that.
Okay, so that's something I need to address.
Absolutely.
And that's where the difficulty is, because it's
the most
hard honesty.
Yeah, that's the most difficult part, because that's the thing that drains whatever. If you look at it as a check balance, if you do the things that energetically elevate you, but you have that drain.
Just
keeps
that's
draining.
The leak almost, isn't it?
That's exactly it, man. And unless you address that part of it, that other thing is unfortunately not going to outweigh it. So it's a dual process. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
And that's the thing where you have to train yourself to become courageous enough to leave that relationship, or find a way to transition out of that job, or find a way to start that business, or find a way to get healthy, whatever that is. You have to be courageous, because courage is always required when you go into uncharted territory. Unfortunately, everything that's worth getting to requires you to get into
it's all in the uncharted territory.
Yeah.
It's all parts of the map which haven't been.
Yeah, I mean, people always say, right, you have potential. Think about just the word potential. Potential means you could be that if you were to become that, if you were to go into those realms in which you can unlock those part of you that currently are just potential, but then they become part of you. But potential in itself exists in a realm of uncertainty and exploration. It doesn't exist in the realm of safety. And the ego always tries to keep you there, because uncertainty signals, evolutionarily speaking, exclusion, or the fear of exclusion from the genetic pool. So you have to realize that your mind is going to talk you out of it. How often did you have an idea intuitively that you should be pursuing, and then the mind comes in, dude, no. If you do this, if you take that risk, you might be wiped out, man. If you leave that person, what are you going to do then? You're going to be alone, man. Are you sure you can do that? Just go back, figure that out, When your intuition says, go away. That's the thing. It's because the mind, the chatter of the mind comes from the ego, and that's the thing, that it's not bad. It just thinks that you might go somewhere that's dangerous, and it's trying to keep you here. Don't go towards the line that's might be in the bush. That rustling you hear might be a lion, Yeah.
I'm fed up of that, though, if I'm being honest. I'm absolutely fed up of my rationalizing chatterbrain coming in and thinking that it's got it figured out and talking me in or out of things. No, man. I've got to be more like going from my heart. I'm really trying to engage in that more these days, because it's so annoying up there. I could be up here for hours, getting nowhere. I read something somewhere about being in, or I think it was one of my friends who's doing like a walk from Manchester or something to like the bottom of the UK to raise money for this little girl who's got some heart disease or something. Like this is a courageous fella, because he's going to walk for 4 days, non-stop, no sleep. So he's training for this at the moment, going nuts for that. I remember him saying something about he's the type of person who you're around him and you're like, he would be at boxing, he would be like, mentally he's very tough, But he said, even in this kind of situation where he's thinking about not sleeping and how he's gonna, the food he's gonna have while he's doing this 4-day walk, and he says about he's not often in his head. And I was like, it's a nice way of putting it. If I can separate me thinking like I'm Mark thinking through a process and make it about me being in my head versus being out here and living my life, like where would I rather be? Up here in the fucking dust, or out there living it and just getting involved with stuff?
Yeah.
I want to live my life more than think about life. And I've realized that certainly a lot of my time is spent thinking, which is good. I mean, sure, I enjoy the process of that. But bro, it's time to get out there and get living with it.
Mm-hmm. And
the Ellen Langer thing about making decisions and moving on, just get going then. Try something. I mean, and another thing that I want to touch on as well, so much of what we talk about is dependent on on the feedback that we receive for it. And I think that's generalized. You know, most people are looking to see that they do a good job on something. They want to make sure that they're doing what is expected, etc. And you're looking for that interplay with whoever you're, doing things with. But we just need to not give a fuck. We need to not give a fuck way more, and just get on with it.
And more than the not giving a damn, it can be looked at externally, not giving a damn about what other people think of you. And people always say, like, you should be unapologetically yourself.
I think it's not giving a damn full stop. It's like the Mark Manson book.
Yeah, I was about to go
there.
there.
That.
So it's not. Most people would say you should be unapologetically yourself, but the way most people look at it is you shouldn't care about what other people say of you. And to a certain degree, that's right, but also not fully right, because we all care to a certain degree, because we.
And you shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't be completely.
Otherwise, you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely normal to care to a certain degree. The problem is when you care to the degree to which you're violating your inner truth and living that out, or you have a disconnect between what you act out and what you believe to be true. And the simple example I always like to use is, if you're with someone and they make a comment on the weather, this weather kind of sucks, and you're like, yeah, it's probably going to clear up like within the next few days. But let's say you actually like the weather. The reason you're not saying that, and you think that's a small lie, but it isn't, because that type of thing violates your own self-trust and authenticity. You're like, yeah, it should be clearing up. It's because you want to keep a certain level of harmony, and you want to upkeep a certain level of image that the guy holds towards you. And we evolved in groups, and your individual abilities and contribution to the group also allowed the group to succeed and evolve. So that is evolutionary ingrained within us to care. Otherwise, we're psychopaths. But it shouldn't be violating your own truth. It shouldn't be at the expense of you not being able to express peacefully, not just to go against the grain and be disagreeable.
Yeah.
That's just another form of ego. That's the first part. But really what that line means, like you should be able to disagree, is against the voice of the mind, because really you have that external disagreement, or being authentically yourself externally, but really you have two voices within, right? You have that, Rumi calls it silent, the silent pull of love, the voice that speaks without words. That's what he calls intuition, the voice of the heart. And then you have the chatter of the mind, which is aligned with the ego. So really what it comes down to is being able to say no, what you say, I don't give one. I don't care what you say, I'm going with the heart. But when you say heart, that's the French for cœur. And cœur is related to courage. So that's what courage means. It's going and allowing you to go with intuition over mind. Because every time you go with intuition, you have to be courageous, because you have to say no to that voice of the mind. And the voice of the mind is problematic. Why? Because the voice of the mind is able to calculate the downside of it. Yeah, but if you go, you will lose this much money. Yes, but if you go, then you will lose this partner and you will feel that pain. But it can see the amount of gain that decision might bring. And because it can measure the downside and not see the upside, we're much more likely to give in to that voice.
Yeah, and we're attuned to loss aversion, aren't we?
Exactly.
More so than,
2.2 times more sensitive to risk aversion. That's prospect theory by Kahneman and Tversky. They actually won a Nobel Prize for that. And the reason you're more loss averse than sensitive to gains is because we have a downside to negativity, death. But you don't have a limit to the upside. And the way they tested it is actually, it was very interesting. It's called the endowment effect. If I give you this can of coffee and I ask you to sell it to me, you're going to demand 2.2 times more the price than you're willing to pay for that. Because you already have something, and the pain of losing what you already have looms 2.2 times larger than the sensitivity towards gaining it or the joy of gaining it. And that applies here as well, so that you can extrapolate that to the situation of listening to your mind. Oh, if I go and take that risk and start that business and lose those $5,000, $6,000, you're losing $5,000-$6,000. That's going to be a heavy dent in your bank account, man. There's already not too much in there. What you going to do then? And then what are people going to think? This idiot invested that money there, right? But that's because the mind doesn't see the prospect of gain to that same degree. But your intuition, if you want to look at intuition as almost an entity that's already occupying the highest version of self, remembers how you get to that ultimate level. So it's flashing the light to move here and then here and here, but only as long as you act upon it and you nudge it. If you don't do it, you're actually tainting that voice of intuition and you're downscaling it. So that's where the courage comes in, and you have to train yourself to act upon it.
To act upon it, and to not fall victim to the voice, which is going to talk you into whatever area. As soon as you get into that kind of rumination area, you've got to go, whoa, no, shake it, no. How do you feel? Let's move with that. So easy said than done.
It's easier said than done. I spoke to my friend Sonny in the gym about this. It seems to be that for some people, it's easier to be courageous enough and listen to their intuition than for other people. And
is there a common denominator or
yeah,
factor?
I think so. I think it oftentimes comes down to how many data points do you have in life to look back to and realize that following your intuition was the right thing to do, or looking at a data point in life where something bad happened to you and your ego was like, oh my goodness, how am I getting out of that, just to figure out 5 years later that it was the best thing that happened to you. Look at your relationships of the past. You get out of a relationship, you get to the next one, it's like, oh man, thank God, but at that time it was so difficult to break up with that person. Same with changing a job or changing a career, whatever that might be, right? So the less data points you have to look back to and reflect upon, the less likely you're gonna have that courage to listen to your intuition. And then the question becomes, well, if you don't have enough data points, how do you create those data points? And that was something I've been thinking about last week, actually, because I have in my family a member that just doesn't have that level of courage to listen to their intuition. They don't have that level of self-trust. And you think like some people, they have that more naturally, and some people don't. And you can create those data points. It doesn't matter if you have them or not. You can create them. And I think there's two ways to create them. The first thing is you can create them physically. Because of the yin and the yang, the mind and the body are connected. So if you don't have data points that prove to you that you're more than, you can create them. How? You go do physical things that are difficult. You can go to the gym and you can do, relative to your own abilities, something that pushes you beyond your limits. For you, that might be running a marathon because you're fit, but for someone that's severely obese, that might just be going to the gym one time because they were ashamed of going to the gym ever in their life. So by doing that, they're creating a data point that they're more than. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I was so afraid of what people think, but I did it. So now you have a reference point that allows you to look to in order to then be in a situation where you're like, oh, I remember this was difficult. I didn't think I could do it, but now I can do it. But I was courageous enough to do it. The second thing is, even if you can't do that, you can actually create a data point by proxy. And what I mean by that is you can look at people in similar situations that have faced what you're facing and see how they got out of that. That can help as well if you're currently even not in a position to create the smallest data points. You can look at that and draw inspiration from that in order to catalyze your own improvement. And then the other thing is that's kind of like the physical aspect, there's the by proxy aspect, and then there's a mental aspect. Like if you can create a data point by doing something you're afraid of, as small as you think that might be, you're also creating a data point. And all of those serve you building self-trust and then ultimately courage.
Yeah, bro. Same every week, isn't it? Do the hard thing.
Yeah.
Notice what that is. I mean, I've got so many things that crop up during my week which I know I need to do.
Like?
Just things that I put off. And they could be the smallest things. Like it could be talking to, this attorney about some contract. It could be just things that I need to address. And I will often choose the easier thing to do than engage in the hard thing. But I should just engage in the hard thing first. Just like when I go to the gym first thing in the morning, and as you are saying, You know, I do something hard early on in the day, and then the rest of my day, the decisions don't seem as hard because I've done the hard thing. I've proved to myself I'm more than I thought I was because I went through my little mini death.
Yeah.
And then when things happen later on in the day, it doesn't seem as much of a big deal. If I haven't gone to the gym in that way, I'm using the gym as a rough example here, but it works. It doesn't have to be the gym. That's just the easiest thing I've found. But if I haven't gone to the gym and then some things crop up in my day, it's often harder for me to engage in those things because I haven't proved to myself that I'm more than that yet in that day.
Yeah, well, there is one thing that even trumps these data points and the proving to yourself, and that one thing is belief. If you can just believe and choose to believe and have that faith, then that supersedes all of these physical actions and mental actions and data points. And that belief thing doesn't necessarily have to be religion in a traditional sense or God in a traditional sense. It's whatever relationship you find or can find that is transcendental, that is grander than you and your physical self and your five senses and your ego. If you can find some relationship that way, some type of transcendental belief that allows you to feel a certain level of faith that you can withstand and persevere through whatever difficulty it is you're facing, that's going to be the ultimate cheat code. And that's the one thing I think that everyone needs to work on to a certain degree. Find their relationship with the divine that serves their own reality creation. Because if you have a relationship with the divine that does not allow you to get a grip on your life and change your reality positively, again, that's vanity. That's kind of like the make-believe thing. So then you have to change something. And there's something that's not working. Because even in the Bible, it's saying that your belief can be put to test. Romans 12:2, that's the one. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And by doing so, you can test and approve of God's will. So you test and approve of God's will through the transformation of the mind rather than the bending of externalities. And the transformation of the mind is what? It's changing your beliefs, fundamental beliefs. It's changing your fundamental thoughts. It's changing your fundamental ideas. It's changing your emotional state. And by doing so, the Bible itself says you can test and approve of God's will. Why? Because external reality is a reflection of internal reality. So the moment you change your internal reality and persist in it, external reality will change accordingly. So that's the ultimate cheat code.
When you were saying that, it was reminding me of the book by Viktor Frankl. Is it A Search for Meaning?
Man in Search for Meaning?
Yeah.
I told Alex about that just today.
Yeah, but because you read that account, and there is faith is the thing that kept that guy going. Yeah. That this too shall pass, the most horrific situation to be in, completely stripped of you. You're feeling like you're just, it's horrific. And for anyone that hasn't read that, it's obviously set in World War II. World War II or World War I? So I think it's Auschwitz, so it must be World War II.
Yeah.
But anyway, horrific.
Concentration camp.
You're reading there, and you're feeling, and even it's a hard book to read, but also shows you the power of the mind when focused in on the belief and the faith that this too shall pass, and that there will be something that's coming that's greater than where you're at the moment. Yeah. Which is always good to remember, because there could always be a situation that's worse than what you're in.
Yeah, well, everything in life is perspective. So the better you get at putting things into perspective, the more likely you're going to be to deal and persevere in difficult situations.
Yeah.
Because everything is just, again, the Kabbalion says, every truth is but a half-truth. Because there's the opposite side of it. The opposite side of it is always a different perspective. That's why it feels good to talk to people about problems. Why? Because we have 8 billion different perspectives.
Yeah. Spot on, bro. Spot on. Cheers, Nitro Boy.
What kind of boy?
Nitro Boy.
Nitro boy.
What kind of boy?
Cheers, Nitro Boy.